Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. Okay, great. So like I was saying, sorry about the audio situation. My speakers are not working today for some reason, even though I can see my volume bar jumping up and down. So I have the chat window open. You can certainly type in any questions that may come up. And I'm basically going to go through a technical presentation just showing you how the Ericom Access Now can really just provide additional value to the Chromebook. If you have any questions, just again, please jump in and just type that in, and I'll answer them as we go.
We'll just have to repeat the questions as they get typed in this way.
So I'm just going to start off with a couple of slides just to give you some background information. Ericom basically has created this technology based on HTML5. Obviously, you can work on any HTML5 browser, and specifically with Chromebooks as well. And the real value add here is that you have a Chromebook. It's a great lightweight device, long battery life, but it's really designed for web access. And there's certain things that you just can't do with that type of device. And so our goal here is to provide a technology, an access technology that can enhance the value of that Chromebook, so you can not only access applications and desktops, but even other websites that may have Java or Silverlight, or just a specific application running on it that may be designed for a different type of web browser. So this is just an image of what an Access Now session would look like. You have a Chrome browser. Obviously, with a Chromebook, you just have your browser built right into the device, and then you just simply enter a URL. So for the end user, it's very, very easy to use. Practically everybody knows how to use a web browser these days, and if they don't, it's easy enough to learn. So just by putting in that URL, they can connect into an application or desktop to do their work. And that's typically a Windows application or a Windows desktop. We are based on RD, but this type of access is designed to really give ubiquitous access to your Windows applications and desktops from really any device, any Chromebook, but really from any browser as well. So it enables not only cloud computing by hosting these types of applications and data out in the cloud, but it really just promotes the whole bring your own device concept. You can literally take a Chromebook, a tablet, a smartphone. As long as it has that HTML5 browser, you can connect into a Windows application or desktop. And if you're piloting a certain application, it's also very easy to use this technology to deploy that application, because now you don't have to install that application potentially on every user's device. You just put it on one server, give one URL, and now any user can connect to that URL to that new application. But really, we see a lot of synergies with Chromebooks because, again, a Chromebook has a certain use case, but really how do you get people to adopt Chromebooks and to really make that a more mainstream type of device? So our goal in developing this technology is to really kind of look at the Chromebook as a primary device where this technology is going to be utilized on. So it's designed to kind of bridge that transition from your web-based and cloud-based applications, and yet provide Windows access, because it's not something that you can get away from overnight. So just by providing that Windows connectivity so that users have access to both their web-based documents and applications, as well as their legacy Windows applications, makes that transition a lot smoother. They can go back and forth, and that learning curve becomes much more manageable. The Access Now technology, because it is web-based, also has an API. It's very easy to customize. We can actually enable single sign-on. We've actually developed a solution for a customer where a user can go into their Gmail, click on an XLS file that someone might have sent them from Outlook, and then have that XLS file open up an Access Now Windows session to Microsoft Excel. Okay, that XLS file, you typically want it opened up in a native Microsoft application. Perhaps there's a macro or something that's specific to Windows. And this, again, just kind of provides that ability within that Chromebook to connect to these types of applications and documents. We have also added functionality to support keys that are not on the Chrome keyboard. Like, it's not a typical PC keyboard, so there's certain keys that you typically need to use to interact with your Windows session. And we've basically created some key combinations to substitute some of these keys, like the delete key or the page down key or the control keys, control home keys, for example, and the F1 keys, of course. So the idea here is to really make that Chromebook a useful device to connect to your Windows applications and desktops. Now this week, we've just released Access Now 2.0. We've added printing support as well as file transfer support. Regarding a Chromebook, you're really, using the Chromebook as an endpoint device rather than downloading files and uploading files. So the file transfer may not be as relevant, but it is there. But the printing is really cool because now you can take any print job in your Windows session and then send it to your Google Cloud printer. Okay, so you can actually print the document and then have that sent it to your printer. And you really can actually do this from any device that has that browser. So it's a really powerful feature. So we're actually going to do a quick install. I'm actually going to show you what it looks like to enable a Windows server for access. Typically, you need either a physical or virtual system running Windows and RDP. We actually do support Linux as well as an operating system if you have XRDP installed and enabled. And then once RDP is configured and running, you just want to make sure that any firewalls between that system and your Chromebooks have the firewalls configured. By default, we use port 8080. That can easily be changed to any other port, but that's what we use by default. There is a feature in the Windows operating system called network level authentication. It's a higher level of authentication. We don't support that just yet, so it's important to just disable that. And then lastly, for remote access, we do include an SSL secure gateway. So you can literally be on the road over the internet and then connect securely back into their private network to connect into their application or desktop. So what drives this is just a very simple service that runs on your Windows system. And if you're using Linux, it runs on your Linux system. It's what we call the Access Now server. And it's a very lightweight service. There is a configuration console that comes along with it if you want to change the port or activate it or just restart the service for whatever reason. It includes a built-in web browser, and that's what enables a URL to be presented to the end user and then subsequently have the end user connect to the system. Okay, so we're actually going to do a quick install. It's going to take about 5 minutes. It's a really 3 to 4 step process, and you start off by just downloading the MSI. So here I have a Windows server. It's just a generic Windows server, nothing too fancy. I haven't really installed any applications on it. But I have downloaded my Access Now MSI off the website, and I'll just go ahead and run that MSI. I've already read these agreements 100 times, so I'm just going to skip through them. It's really just a matter of clicking Next. And because it's an MSI, you can actually deploy this very easily. You can deploy it silently so that it can be pushed out to various desktops and terminal servers without users even realizing that it's there. It runs as a silent service and really does not require any intervention or maintenance. So once it's there, it'll show up in the program list. And at that point, we can pull up our Chromebook or Chrome browser and try to connect to it. So here's my Chrome browser, and I'll just type in the address, HTTPS, address of the server. Again, it's listening over 8080, so I'm going to reference the web server. And this brings me to that launch page. It's basically a page where you can enter certain parameters as well as your credentials in order to log into that system. And this being a web page, again, it is very easy to customize. You can put in your own logo, really change the look and feel of this to make it your own. You can hide as many of these fields as you want. And you would hide it if you wanted to, let's say, pre-populate it and then prevent users from changing the settings. So let's say you always wanted them to connect to a specific server, and you don't want them to have the ability to connect anywhere else. Now, this is designed for any type of device that can support RDP. So Windows, obviously, that's kind of an operating system where most people use RDP with. And it's just, in terms of the commercial world, this is where, where a lot of businesses have a need for remote access. But whether it be Linux or someday a Mac, as long as they can support an incoming RDP connection, which is a very popular protocol, we'll be able to connect to it. Okay, I'm just going to type in that URL to reference the server. So just leave the field empty. You're actually going to use some of the default values. This is going to take the server name right off of the URL and use that as the machine that I want to connect to. And there it's basically bringing me to the Windows operating system. And once I'm here, I can pull up my documents and my applications in order to do my work. Now let me see if my Linux demo is up. Again, we can connect to any machine that can support RDP connection. Currently, Windows is obviously an operating system that supports this very easily. Linux can support this as well. Macs, it's certainly in progress. It's not in a state where it's, let's say, commercially viable. But we are working to make that, something that's easy to use and something that can be made to, as a solution for, everyday consumers. But for now, it's still basically a work in progress, and we hope to get there someday. So this is just a Linux system. You can see I have an open office here. It has XRDP enabled. It's something you can download for free and enable on your desktop. And then you install our small Access Now service onto that operating system. And then from there, you can connect into your Linux desktop. Again, I'm doing this actually over the internet. This help.ericom is actually a server in our data center. Okay, so this server is actually on my private network. So I'm actually connected directly to that machine in a secure manner. We actually support encryption both in the Access Now service, or you can use our secure gateway. And really the main difference is that the secure gateway is typically used when you have a lot of machines, when you have hundreds and hundreds of these Access Now enabled devices. That's where you would want to use a secure gateway. But if I'm just trying to connect to my Windows machine back at home in my apartment, I don't need a secure gateway. I can simply install the Access Now service like we've done over here. And then this also has built-in SSL encryption. So I just simply enable that encryption. And then everything will be encrypted between the browser and the Access Now service. Okay, so this is the encryption setting. So if I'm connecting remotely and I'm not using the secure gateway, I definitely want to make sure this setting is checked because it'll do an end-to-end encryption between this web browser to the Access Now service on the desktop. Okay, and one of the things with RDP is that it's secure, and that we'll connect to this desktop. Nobody else can see what I'm doing. So it's not a shadowing technology. It's designed for kind of a one-to-one access. When I'm connected into my workstation, only I get to work on my workstation, and we don't have other people at the workstation itself potentially looking at the monitor, seeing what I'm doing. So that's why my previous set is disconnected. Now, once I'm in this session, I have one of these icons here to enable, both the clipboard redirection, which allows me to copy text between this remote session and my local device, as well as my upload and download capabilities. So this is, the capabilities, again, they work on a Chromebook. They're really designed for just Chrome. We're running on a typical, workstation, running on, let's say, a Mac, Windows, or a Linux device. So if I'm at home working on my Mac device, or if I'm here in my office working on this session, I can actually take this file, just simply right-click on it, and select the Access Now Remote Client option. And that's actually going to take that file and then stream it down to the web browser, and that's going to basically download that file onto the workstation. Okay. So here's the file. You can see that it's just like downloading a file in your web browser, and then that file gets placed into the web browser's downloads folder. Okay, so it's again taking that file that's sitting on my remote system and then just pulling it down. Now, if I wanted to print a file, again, I can be working on my Chromebook or running Chrome. Stop this image here. This can be an image, or it could be a 50-page Word document, or a 100-page Google Doc file. I simply just generate the file by going to the print operation, and then selecting the Access Now printer that would be inserted into the session. Okay, so I have this Access Now printer, which really is just a PDF writer. Okay, so it's taking this remote print job and sending it to my local browser. Once the job is ready, it basically opens up a new tab in my browser, and then that's basically a PDF representation of that print output. And from there, I can either use the browser's Save As function to save it as a PDF, or I can use a print function to obviously print to my printer or print to my Google Cloud printer. So this is, you see that I already saved a couple of these. Here I can collecting a little bit slow. Just bear with that. Any questions so far? Okay, so when you initially download this, again, it's a very quick download, about 5 minutes to install. It runs as a 3-day trial. It can be extended if you need additional time to evaluate it, or if you decide to purchase it. It's basically, there's a process to activate. So you get a full-featured application when you download it, but it is a 30-day trial. You can, again, connect to your RDP host, like we like to call it, because that host can be practically any operating system. And then, once that's installed, you can use any Chromebook or browser that's based on HTML5 to connect into that operating system. Now, Warren, to your question, let me just explain. When you're looking at the desktop session, this session really is, it's HTML representation of an RDP session, which is just display data being transmitted back and forth. So there's never any actual application data that's being sent from the Access Now server to the web browser. Okay, it's really just display data, and that data is completely encrypted. Okay, so that this data is encrypted with SSL, and so all of that is secure. Now, when you open this application on that remote desktop, it's something that's running within the desktop. So it's secure as long as that desktop is secure. So it's not something where we would secure further, because we're concerned about securing the connection in the desktop. And then from there, if you have any other security protocols or applications in place, that's up to you. For example, if you have an antivirus, then obviously the antivirus will run within that session. So that's independent from our technology, which is simply the protocol to bring you into the desktop. Okay, so I see Josh's question about some of our competitors. I'm actually not as familiar with Install Freeze offering. These are obviously competitors. Now, one thing to note, Ericom has been in business for 18 years. This is our business, getting users from wherever they are into their applications. Back in '93, it was primarily green screens. These days, it's primarily applications and desktops that are graphical based. So this has always been our business. We feel like we're the leader because we have functionality like clipboard redirection, sound redirection, upload, download. We also work with a lot of connection brokers. So a connection broker is it's a mechanism that basically controls what a user can see. And actually, I was going to get to that a little bit later on, but we might as well. So and there's things in the protocol that make us the fastest HTML5 protocol out there in the market right now. We're actually borrowing some of the acceleration techniques from one of our other products and integrated it into the Access Now protocol. So although there are competitors, there's not a competitor out there that works at the scale that we do and has the level of performance that we can provide. There are other vendors like VMware and Citrix that have talked about providing a solution, but we've already been doing this for over a year, and they still haven't had anything out in the market yet where even a tester can use it in a pilot environment. So we will eventually have a solution at some point. We're here today. We have a very stable product that's used by real customers, and it's something that we're obviously very proud of. And we'll continue to enhance functionality. And as HTML5 evolves as a protocol, our technology will also get better. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the connection broker slide. Let me just give me a second here. Okay, so I mentioned this connection broker. It's really a management platform that controls who can see what type of resources. Connection brokers out there from all types of vendors. Citrix has XenApp and XenDesktop. VMware obviously has VMware View. Access Now works both as a standalone direct access from a browser to a device, or we can work with one of these connection brokers. So for example, if a customer is using a VMware View infrastructure to provide connectivity to, let's say, 500 users to maybe 300 desktops, if they have a working VMware View environment on top, it would take about 20 minutes to enable that environment for Access Now. We would basically install the Access Now service on their gold image and then install the web components on their View broker. Really, 20 minutes is even a stretch. It can even be less than that. So just by installing these two components, they can now still maintain all the functionality with VMware View because we don't change anything fundamental in VMware View, but also provide access from a Chromebook or from any HTML5 browser. Okay, so again, a connection broker is typically used when you have a much bigger environment. If I'm just using Access Now to connect to my home machine, it's a one-to-one connection from here to my house, and I just enable that. I just configure my Access Now for one connection, and I just tell my web browser where to connect to. And with that, I don't really need a connection broker because it doesn't tell me. I don't need access to really more than one resource. Right, so we do have, again, Access Now Standalone, which is typically for individual users, smaller deployments, small to mid-sized companies, and then we have the connection broker capability, which both on VMware View. We support all of the VMware View functionality, so whatever you have working in VMware View, it'll be compatible with us as well, such as RSA Secure ID two-factor authentication. VMware View has their own security server for remote access. However, that does not support WebSockets. So we provide an Ericom secure gateway that can work side by side with the security server, and this does support WebSockets, and this is what enables the connectivity from the web browsers back into those View desktops. Now, one thing to note, we use WebSockets as the primary protocol for communication between an HTML5 browser and our service. However, if for whatever reason you're using a browser, there's one browser out there that doesn't have WebSockets enabled by default, we can fail over to HTTPS mode. Okay, it'll be a little bit slower, but it works just the same. So always try to use WebSockets first because that's the best performing protocol. But if that's not available for any reason, we'll automatically fail back to HTTPS mode. Now, we also have our own connection broker, and this is like Citrix Zen app if you're familiar with it. It basically provides access to both Windows applications as well as virtual desktops or physical desktops. So this is where I want to demo. This is my PowerTrend Web Connect, basically my login page. And again, being a web page is very easy to customize. You put in your logo, put in your usage agreement. Now, when you're dealing with a large organization, you always want to log in with a certain set of credentials. Okay, so the connection broker will authenticate the user before they can even touch any resource out there, before they can touch a document or even get to a desktop's login screen. Okay, you really want to have that layer of security to ensure that the user's valid before they can even go near a system that has an important application or has some critical documents. So that's what the connection broker does, and along with the secure gateway, it really secures the front end between your remote users and your internal systems running your applications and hosting your documents. So now that I've logged in, based on my user credentials and my group membership, I see a list of applications and desktops that I have access to. Okay, now, when my colleague Tracy logs in or my boss Brian logs in, they can see a very different list of resources because this is based on your group memberships. I'm part of the IT group, so I see a desktop related to the IT department versus someone from sales will see applications that are related to sales. And then from there, it's really just point and click. I mean, the interface is designed to be very simple. We try to take a lot of the support overhead away from the workstation and then move the configuration into the data center and into the IT person's hands because they're qualified to deal with these technical issues. So you don't have to worry about downloading components and then setting up proxies and configuring various settings. You simply give them a URL in an HTML5 browser or a Chromebook, and they're off and running. They just have to remember credentials to log in. Okay, so this is, again, it's a fully broken environment. It's designed the enterprise. It's designed to handle hundreds and thousands of users all connecting in at the same time. It's fully redundant. You can have multiple servers working together. If the server ever goes down, the other servers simply pick up the slack so that there's always high availability. And because it's very easy to use, it kind of promotes that business continuity concept. Users can work in the office, they can go home, connect back into their desktop, continue what they were doing. If it happens to have a big snowstorm the next day, they could just continue working from home. And because this is just so easy to use, they can take their Chromebook, really go from anywhere, even use the 3G to just log back into the URL and then resume doing, working with their applications and their documents. So, right now, in terms of the connection broker arena, we're really the only vendor out there that can provide this level of functionality. Obviously, VMware View is a proven broker. We have a bolt-on if a company decides that they're using VMware View. But if they need Windows and desktop access, then our connection broker really is the solution right now. And Access Now is really the protocol for HTML5 access because it is a very mature technology and it has a lot of functionality and it has that secret sauce in terms of performance because we basically use, actually, you can see right here, we have another product called Ericom Blaze that's designed to accelerate the RDP protocol. And we've borrowed some of that technology to incorporate in the Access Now technology. Thanks, Josh, for joining. Hope to see you again soon. Now, so related to the Access Now, it's basically an area where we hope to see a lot of growth. Obviously, there's already a lot of interest in Chromebooks. There's a lot of, especially in the educational industry. I was just at FETC a couple months ago, and the Google booth was just out of control. There's tons of people asking about Chromebooks. There were both schools already using Chromebooks, and then other people who are investigating into it. So we've had a lot of traction working with these evaluators, and it's something that's very exciting for us. So we hope to really join and be part of the Chromebook community to help not only push it because it helps us as well, but to just help educate potential users on what it can do and what the possibilities are. And we hope that we have a very valuable solution to really help these end users get the most out of that Chromebook device. Just a couple more slides related to connection broker. I just wanted to pull up this diagram just to kind of give you a higher level overview of what it really does. We've talked about Chromebooks, we've talked about HTML5 browsers. Really, again, this has been our business for 18 years. We've always dealt with application and desktop access. And over the years, we started off with fat clients, Windows, Mac, Linux to a certain extent, just providing connectivity for this type of devices. And then when thin clients came along, well, we've created a thin client component to enable those devices to connect into their applications and documents. And throughout years, we now have all these smartphones and tablets. Well, we have a native tablet component that you can also install on your Android and iOS devices. And then lastly, the HTML5, because Chromebooks are really having such a big play now, that kind of fell into that opportunity because that's becoming a very popular device as well. But I just wanted to show you the tablet device because obviously this is another area where there's a lot of traction. I'm sure everybody out there who has a Chromebook has a smartphone or a tablet to go along with it, to do other things. And so there's actually native applets that you have that we have on the iTunes Store and the Android market where you can simply download for free. And this enables you to just make an RDP connection into a regular RDP system, or if you're using our connection broker, you can actually specify a Power2 Web Connect connection or a VMware View connection to connect with that desktop. And so, when you're using a native component, you're going to get a little bit more functionality, and you're going to get a little bit better performance because it's a native connection from the device to the actual host. This is when you're using Access Now. We're using the web browser as the client, and the web browser is a very secure application, but there are also some inefficiencies in doing that. We have to work around some of their security mechanisms, and we have to really we have to make that transition from WebSockets into RDP. So it certainly works well enough, but it's not going to be as efficient as if you were using a purely native client designed for a specific operating system. Okay, so just to kind of summarize what we've talked about, I've tried to present enough content for 45 minutes and try to convey really the two major technologies here. The first is just basic access, using Access Now, connecting your Chromebooks and really any HTML5 browser into a Windows, Linux, and very soon a Mac system that's running RDP. And RDP, again, it's something that typically comes included with a lot of operating systems, and if it doesn't come included, it's easy enough to enable. And then for organizations that have a greater need for security and for managed access, that's where our connection broker comes in. And obviously, like we've mentioned, Access Now works not only with our broker, but really with a lot of the industry brokers out there. And just to reiterate, this is something we're very proud of. We have been in business for 18 years. We have strong relationships with a lot of customers, both small and large. And we actually have customers in over 45 countries now. So it's Ericom's definitely a vendor that's here to stay. We don't plan on going anywhere, and we definitely plan on making our technologies better and hopefully growing along with them. Okay, so thanks again for joining. I really wish I could speak with you guys, but I'm going to try to get the speaker thing figured out. Have you seen any questions come in at all? Warren, I see you had a question about the Cloud Internet Explorer app. Okay, you've been using Cloud Internet Explorer. You've asked about security. Okay. Okay, good question. Okay, so we have a series of demo servers out in the cloud. Okay, they're actually all hosted on Amazon. Most of them are hosted on Amazon. They don't tell me what they're actually running on a day-to-day basis, but I know a bunch of them are on Amazon. We basically just created a very isolated environment that runs IE, Internet Explorer. And the idea here is to give users basically an interface to run IE, to launch certain applications and launch certain Java applets that normally wouldn't run in a Chromebook. And it's something you can certainly recommend and use, but it is a public server, so it's locked down. That server gets reset, I think, either on a daily basis or every other day. Sometimes people will mess with the settings, and so it's not something that you can use really for, let's say, sensitive matters or private use. But it's something that you can certainly use on a daily basis, but just be aware that it's a public server, and then other people could have access to certain applications. If you decide to publish your own IE on your own terminal server, then you can certainly lock that down very strong so that nobody can access this, and that's something that you can just set up in your private network. I want to bring up one more slide that talks about security.
Okay.
We've talked about the connection broker, and we've also talked about the security. Okay, try to use WebEx with your Chromebook. I assume using Cloud Internet Explorer, you cannot get a recorded program on WebEx to run. I'm not sure what a WebEx recording requires. I think there's actually, I was actually just playing with this earlier. I think it doesn't necessarily play in your browser. I think there's an actual application that you need to run to access a WebEx recording. Let me just show you what I got here. So when you create a WebEx recording, I'm just not too on how the recording works, but I know typically I get a WebEx recording that I can download, and I I would basically use an application that I download from WebEx to view the recording. So, for example, there's this WebEx player here that you would open up a WRF file to play that recording back. Our demo servers are locked down to prevent the downloading of any application, whether that be a friendly application or obviously a malicious application, because the last thing we want is having all types of spyware loaded on that. So although you can access any website and certainly use it for WebEx, it is very limited in terms of what types of applications you can run. Now, if they have a Java version of this player, then I would think that could run, from a web browser, but you wouldn't be able to actually install a native application in that demo environment. So just be aware of that. Okay, but just going back to the security aspect, we've talked about encryption. Access now has a level of encryption built in. I've touched on the secure gateway. All of our largest customers are using the secure gateway, because it's basically one reverse proxy that sits in your DMZ and can basically relay hundreds, if not thousands, of connections between end users and your internal, servers that are running your applications and hosting your documents. So it provides that very important layer of security and an additional level of authentication if you really need it. And it's really there to safeguard your service from direct access from anybody on the internet. Okay, guys, any other questions?
I don't have any more questions.
Well, you have my email address. We're all in the same circle, and if you have anything that comes along, by all means, pass that over to me. I'll be happy to take a look at that. And if you think that this Hangout is useful, I'd be more than happy to do more of these, with different audiences or whatever makes sense. Just let me know how I can help. So, thanks again. Thanks for your time. And, nice seeing both of you, and I'll hope to talk to you soon. Okay, I'm going to sign off now.